Hello everyone and welcome to the Software Architecture Team Community Update for July 2023. The Software Architecture Team is an internal team here at SSW that's being tasked for providing guidance and tooling around all things related to software architecture. In this update today, we'll look at all the great work that the team has done over the past month. But first up, we'll do some introductions. So my name is Daniel Mackay. I am a solution architect here at SSW. William?
Hey everybody, I'm William, also a solution architect. I'm based in Melbourne and deeply involved with the architecture team, clean architecture, all the Azure stuff. That's my bread and butter. I love it.
Okay.
Yep, and I'm Luke Parker from the Brisbane office, software engineer up here, working on the clean architecture stuff and similarly all things software architecture.
And I'm Adam Kogan, just listening in.
Hey Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Where did you come from?
All right.
No, welcome Adam. It's nice to have you here and checking out all the cool things we've done. So Dan, take it away.
All right. So the big ticket item for us this month was running the Clean Architecture Workshop. So this workshop was presented by both Luke and myself in Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. And we really enjoyed running the workshop, and we got a lot of positive feedback from the attendees who got a lot of value from all the content that we presented. So if you missed out on this workshop, don't fret. We'll be running another one in the future. So if you're interested in joining up on the next workshop, keep an eye on our workshop, on our website, or you could Google SSW events. And here's a couple bits of feedback we got from a couple of attendees who were really stoked on the workshop that we presented. So in our SSW Clean Architecture template, we've changed the way that we've organized the code in our domain layer. So previously, we used to group all of our code by type. So for example, we grouped all the entities together, we grouped the enums together, events together, and so on. And now we've opted for more of a feature-based approach. So this makes it easy to find the code, related code, because everything's all grouped together. So, changes that or code that changes together should live together. And we've also moved our specifications into the domain layer as well, as they're related to their entities and aggregates. So another benefit of grouping all of our feature-based code together is that when you're using our template to start up a new project and you instantiate the template, the first thing you're probably going to do is remove all of our to-do item code like this feature from the template. So now that everything's grouped into one folder, that makes it a lot easier to do. Now, we're also leveraging bogus to generate our seed data. So bogus is a really awesome tool that allows us to generate seed realistic data during development. So we've also set it up in a way that it makes it really easy to bump the amount of data that's being generated. So if we need to create a lot of data for performance testing, we can do that really easily just by changing this number here. The other thing we've worked on in the template this last sprint is just making the F5 experience a bit easier. So by default, if you are a Windows developer, you're most likely to have a version of SQL local DB, so running locally. And if so, this first connection string here will just work and the solution should just work out of the box. But if you're a developer, on the other hand, who's running on Mac OS, most likely you'll need to spin up a database in a Docker container. So to do that, we can do that by running Docker compose up to bring up the database container, and then using this other connection string that we've provided here to connect through to that database. So next, I'll hand over to William to talk about strongly typed IDs.
Excellent. Thanks, Daniel. So I'm just going to take over the screen share real quick. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to talk to you about using strongly typed IDs in your clean architecture projects, especially with Entity Framework. Now, this is mainly to combat the code smell known as primitive obsession. Now, I've got a cool demo to show you shortly, but what that means is instead of using strings or ints or GUIDs everywhere throughout the code base to give your entities an ID, everything needs an ID field or an index property. We're going to look at a way to combat that, and I'll show you why just using plain strings or primitive values everywhere is a bad thing to do. And as a result of using strongly typed IDs, if we ever have to refactor and change from a string to a GUID or from an int to something else, we only do it in one place. So it's just a small implementation detail that we change for this strongly typed IDs for a customer, for instance, rather than having to find everywhere in the code base that we reference this string of customer ID. Okay, and we landed on a structure here using the read-only record struct to define our strongly typed ID construct. Now, there's a cool rule that we wrote. It's got benchmarks. It's got a lot of information there about how we ended up with this structure. So click that link and go check it out. Now, to make this work with Entity Framework, we also just give it a little bit of configuration code, because we need to tell it how to map from the strongly typed ID in our code to a database type or a primitive type, and the other way around. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to jump straight into Visual Studio. Okay. So here we have a very typical scenario. We have an entity for a customer, and with our EF version, we've got a base entity type. So I'll just show you that real quick. And one of its generic parameters is for the type of ID that we want to use. So we see here we have an ID field, and it uses that generic parameter. Great. So I've left out all the details for a customer, same for the product, but just for demo purposes. So both of these, I'm using a GUID for the ID field. And so I've got a little order service here. And when I want to go and create a new order, I need a customer ID and a product to associate these two together to create an order. So instead of doing really cool ordering things, I'm just printing out a little message for now. And if you were to do this in the real world, you want to go and read your customer from a database somehow and read the product as well to do this association and use the order service to create the order, that's how you do it. But you might spot, or maybe not, you'll spot that something's wrong and doesn't actually work in the real world. We look at this new order method here. The definition says, give me a customer ID and a product ID. Now, because they're both GUIDs, I can actually swap these around and the code doesn't care. But of course, when I create an order, something is not going to quite line up elsewhere downstream. So how do we fix that? So this is the problem called primitive obsession. We're using these primitive types everywhere. This could have been an int or a string. Okay, so let's combat that. So I've already created two strongly types here, one for customers and one for products. And I'm using the read-only record struct with the underlying value still being a GUID. Awesome. So I'm just going to go and replace this GUID with a customer ID. You can already see I've got a red squiggle here. Doesn't like just giving it a plain GUID, but we'll fix that in a sec. And I'll replace this one with product. Nice and easy. And the new order, same here. Instead of two GUIDs, I'll just give it product ID and customer ID. Now I've got a few more red squiggles. Great. So now I can start fixing this up. So I'm just going to go new. Actually, I've already cooked one up before, so I'll do a shortcut. I'll comment this one out. I'll bring this one back. And I can just delete that one. Don't need that anymore. Now you can see I have a customer ID with a GUID. Same with the product, but typically these will be read from a database anyways. And when I go and create new order, if I put these two in the wrong order, I actually get, that needs to be a comma. The compiler is telling me, look, you can't do this because a product is not a customer and a customer is not a product. So that's great. Strongly typed IDs actually prevents us from doing the wrong thing. Cool. So just to quickly recap, we're using a very easy, very succinct way of defining a strongly typed ID or an ID type for our entities. and we sort of just give that to our base entity. Quite nice and easy. So here's a bad version where we're following that primitive obsession anti-pattern or code smell. And here's the good version. This is how we'd like to combat this and just make sure everything is done the right way. And here's just a quick version again of our base entity where we just pass in that ID type and everything's quite nice and straightforward. Now, to deal with entity framework, we have to give it just a little bit of information of how do you map from the primitive type to the strongly typed. So we can use this .has conversion method, and it's just two sort of delegates that we give it. Firstly, to tell it take the strong typed ID and return the underlying value. And then when coming back from the database, we just get the database value or the GUID, and this is how we construct a new strongly typed product ID. Straightforward. And also, Entity Framework has the ability to then generate this GUID for us as well. You sort of like an auto increment ID or an auto generated ID when we add it to the database if there isn't one already. So everything just works as we're always used to. It's quite nice. Cool. Oh, now here's a second update for you. This is all about domain events. Now, domain events are sort of the historical facts, things that happened in your domain. So if it's about products or about customers or warehousing, there's things that happen like order created, invoice submitted, all sorts of things that you can track that actually happened. Now, why are they important? For us, it helps us to react to events that have happened, but without tightly coupling our software together. So it decreases the coupling. And also it helps us increase the single responsibility principle as well, because now our code can focus on doing something for one event only. Excuse me. Now, the way we do this is in Entity Framework, we have a interceptor. And this interceptor will look at our entities, and we've added any events to these entities. They'll get published onto the bus. All right, so we use the Entity Framework interceptors to collect all the events added to our entities, and then we publish them onto the mediator notification bus. Yes, and to handle those, or to have domain event handlers, and once I've created a product, I raise the product created event, there can be some sort of handler in my domain to react to it and do something custom and cool. I'll show you a demo of that shortly. Now, domain events, they're separate to what we also call integration events. So they're two separate things. Domain events, they only travel within the current bounded context, so within our current application. When we're dealing with, say, just an ordering system, it stays within that ordering system. It doesn't leave the application and go to a warehousing or an email notification service. So that domain event, because it's got a lot of things that you might not want to expose, it stays within the application. Integration events on the other side, they're quite lean, quite basic. They just have some IDs and stuff that we need to reference the main entities, but it doesn't contain the whole entity. So we only use them to get DTOs back if we ever needed to. So also, I've got a really cool rule about this, and there's also a demo project, so please go and check that out. But in a nutshell, what we do, we use records again, because it's just a nice way of, a succinct way of declaring our constructs. So I have here a movie created event and it contains the whole movie entity of that new movie that was created. You can see some code here at the bottom where the movie was created. I add the domain event to the entity, and eventually that'll get published. And here is a handler that will receive that event, and then I can go and do some cool stuff as a reaction to that movie being created. And you can do other things, just like if there was an update to the movie, again, raise an event and handle it. And now I'd hand over to Luke Parker, and he's going to tell you about the awesome Clean Architecture website.
You will. Let me just take over the screen share also. The awesome Clean Architecture repository is basically just a collection of bookmarks or links to other resources, all things related to clean architecture. So let me show that to you first, and then I'll resume the slides. So this is what the repository looks like. if you've seen the other awesome lists, we've got the little branding there that they like to have. So what we have is a collection of templates, so the SSW template and a few other popular ones, as well as other links to resources, whether it's articles or what we call reference architectures, which is an example using another technology. For example, MAUI or GraphQL or a deeper DDD example with clean architecture as demos. So this repository is open to any contributions. So you can go in and show off your cool clean architecture projects just with one PR away, and it'll get merged in. So that is the awesome CA repo. I'll hand back to Dan.
Awesome, thank you, Luke. I'll just grab the screen again. So hopefully you guys are looking at what I am, which is today we released version 0.6.0 of our clean architecture template. So this template, this version of the template, contains all of the work that we've been talking about today, plus a couple of other little goodies related to an icon change and just updating some of the metadata for our minimal APIs. So if you're interested in finding out more about our clean architecture template, you can find it on the GitHub URL below. And we'd also really love to hear any feedback that you may have about this template as well. So this is probably easiest to provide to us either via a GitHub issue or discussion. You can also find the template on NuGet as well. So if you search on nuget.org for ssw.cleanarchitecture.template, you can find the template there as well. So just to summarize everything that we've talked about today for the July highlights. So we covered the clean architecture workshop that Luke and I finished presenting just a few weeks ago. We covered a bunch of updates that we've done to the clean architecture template itself. William took us through some strongly typed IDs code and a rule that we've added around that. He also took us through some domain events and how we can use that to keep our code loosely coupled. Then Luke took us through the awesome clean architecture repository that we've been maintaining, a collection of awesome links related to clean architecture. And also we touched on the version 0.6.0 of the template, like I said, that we released today. So that's it for this month's update. My name is Daniel Mackay. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.